Vesta 4 is not a planet. It is a biological ambush. From orbit, it looks like a lush, emerald paradise, but the moment you breach the canopy, you realize the air itself is an enemy. The atmosphere is saturated with a microscopic, predatory fungus known as the Vesta-cordyceps. These aren't just seeds, they are self-navigating parasitic hunters. They float in the heavy yellow mist, waiting for the slightest breach in a pressurized suit, the tiniest scratch on a soldier's skin. If they find raw flesh, the war is already over. The spores burrow in, gestating in the warmth of human blood, and within minutes, they begin to rewrite the host's biology. The skin hardens into a leathery, translucent shell. Fungal filaments wrap around the nervous system like a spider's web. The host doesn't die, not exactly. They become Spore-Widows, walking, screaming incubators designed to carry the infection into the heart of their own squads. When the 14th Fire Eaters Battalion was sent to Vesta 4 to recover a lost research data node, we didn't go in with standard tactical gear. You don't bring ballistic vests to a fungal bloom. You bring the Vulcan 7 pressure suit. It is a walking oven, a 300-pound copper steel alloy rig lined with internal heating coils. Our mission wasn't just to shoot, it was to cauterize. On Vesta 4, every bullet hole in an enemy is a new vent for spores. You don't kill the jungle. You burn it until the molecular bonds of the fungus shatter. I am Sergeant Torch Miller, and I lead the Cauterizer units. We are the ones who walk into the yellow fog when everyone else is running for the dropships. Our motto is simple: if it bleeds, burn it. If it breathes, seal it. The drop into the grave glade was a descent into a nightmare. The canopy was so thick it blocked out the sun, leaving the forest floor in a permanent, sickly yellow twilight. The humidity was a physical weight pressing against our suits, and the sound, a constant, wet drip-drip hiss, was the sound of the jungle digesting itself. My squad, Jax, Sarah, and Big Bear Kovic, landed in a tight formation, our heavy boots sinking into a carpet of white, fibrous moss that felt disturbingly like human hair. Suit integrity check. Now, I barked over the comms, the sound of my own breathing loud in my helmet. Sarah, sealed. Internal temp at 50 degrees Celsius. Jax, sealed. Promethium tanks at 100%. Kovic, sealed. I'm ready to cook this salad, Sarge. We moved through the undergrowth, our heavy flamethrowers held at the ready. We weren't looking for movement, we were looking for the bloom. The research station was 3 clicks east, buried under a mountain of iron vines. As we pushed through a cluster of giant, pulsating mushrooms, the yellow fog thickened. My Geiger-style spore counter began to tick, a rapid, frantic sound that meant the air was alive with parasites. Contact. 3 o'clock. Sarah yelled. From the shadows of a massive, rotted tree, a Spore-Widow emerged. It had been a marine once. I could still see the tattered remains of a Federation patch fused into the fungal growth on its shoulder. But the face was gone, replaced by a star-shaped burst of white, feathery filaments that pulsed with a pale bioluminescence. It didn't growl, it made a sound like dry wood snapping. It lunged at us with terrifying speed, its elongated arms ending in jagged, calcified claws. Burn it! I roared. Jax unleashed a 3-second burst of pressurized Promethean fire. The white-hot flame illuminated the dark jungle, turning the yellow fog into a swirling vortex of orange. The Spore-Widow didn't just burn, it popped. The fungal sacs on its body exploded like organic grenades, releasing clouds of highly flammable spores that ignited in a chain reaction. The creature thrashed in the fire, its screeching voice a mixture of human vocal cords and the hiss of escaping steam, until it collapsed into a pile of black ash. Don't stop. There's more in the canopy. Kovic shouted, pointing his heavy incendiary cannon upward. The trees were alive. Dozens of widows were dropping from the branches, their bodies light and buoyant thanks to the gas-filled sacs in their chests. They were falling like macabre snow, their claws extended. This wasn't a skirmish, it was a swarm. Defensive pattern Vulcan. I commanded. We backed into a circle, our suits clicking as the external heat shunts opened. We became a sun in the middle of the green hell. We unleashed a 360-degree wall of fire, creating a dead zone around us. The heat was so intense that the moss beneath our feet turned to glass. The Spore-Widows hit our wall of flame and disintegrated mid-air. The smell was horrific, the stench of burning yeast and charred meat, but we didn't dare stop. If a single widow breached the perimeter and managed to crack a visor, we'd be blooming before we could scream. We pushed forward, a moving fortress of fire. Every step was a battle. The jungle fought us with every biological trick it had. Tripping vines coated in neurotoxic thorns lashed at our legs. Acid pitchers, the size of cars, tried to spray us with digestive enzymes. We didn't dodge, we burned. We used our suit-integrated heat blades, massive serrated knives glowing orange with thermal energy, to hack through the iron vines that tried to coil around our limbs. Every cut we made was instantly cauterized by the blade's heat, ensuring no spores could escape the plant's vascular system. We reached the research station. It was a tomb. The doors had been breached months ago, and the interior was a solid mass of white, throbbing fungus. In the center of the main lab we found the survivors, or what was left of them. They were fused to the walls, their bodies serving as the foundation for a massive Great Mother bloom. They were still alive, their eyes darting frantically behind a thin veil of fungal growth. The fungus was keeping them alive, feeding them nutrients just so it could use their nervous systems to coordinate the spore release. "Sarge, they're still in there," Sarah whispered, her flamethrower wavering. "I know," I said, my voice cold. "And the only mercy they have left is the fire. Recover the node. I'll handle the mother." As Sarah and Jax scrambled to the server rack, the Great Mother bloom reacted. The walls of the lab began to pulse and hundreds of Spore-Widows, the nursery guard, burst from the floorboards. They were smaller, faster, and more aggressive. They swarmed over Kovic, their claws screeching against his copper plating. "I'm pinned." Kovic roared, his heavy armor thudding against the deck. He didn't use his gun, he engaged the suit purge. A massive burst of superheated steam and fire erupted from the joints of his armor, incinerating the widows crawling on him. He stood up, glowing red-hot, and began to swing his massive fists like hammers, crushing fungal skulls with every blow. I turned my attention to the mother. I didn't use the flamethrower, it wasn't enough to kill the core. I pulled a thermite spike from my belt, a 2-foot rod of pure incendiary fury. I jammed it into the center of the pulsating mass, right where the human hosts were fused. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I triggered the spike. A blinding white light filled the lab as the thermite burned at 4,000 degrees. The Great Mother shrieked, a psychic and physical wail that shattered the glass in our helmets. The entire lab began to melt. "We got the node." "Extract! Extract!" Jax yelled. We ran. The jungle was in an uproar. The death of the mother had triggered a spore storm. The yellow fog turned into a violent, swirling hurricane of white particles, so thick we could barely see our own hands. The widows were everywhere now, driven by a suicidal frenzy. They didn't care about the fire, they threw themselves into the flames just to get a single claw on us. We fought our way back to the landing zone, our promethium tanks running dangerously low. My suit's alarms were screaming, overheating. Critical coolant failure. My skin was blistering inside the suit from the sheer radiant heat of our own weapons, but I didn't stop. We couldn't stop. The dropship descended through the smoke, its engines roaring as it cleared a circle of fire on the ground. "Go, go, go." I shoved Sarah and Jax into the hold. Kovic followed, his armor blackened and dented, steam hissing from his vents. I was the last one on the ramp. I turned back and saw the jungle, a wall of yellow death filled with thousands of glowing white eyes watching us from the dark. I didn't give them a parting word. I just emptied the last of my fuel into the brush, creating one final barrier of fire, and slammed the hatch shut. As we broke the atmosphere and the blue sky of Vesta 4's upper layers appeared, the silence in the hold was heavy. We unlatched our helmets, gasping for the recycled, sterile ship air. Kovic was covered in soot. Sarah was shaking. I looked at the research node, a small, cold piece of metal that had cost an entire colony their lives. "Did we save anything, Sarge?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. I looked down at my hands. My copper gauntlets were scarred, the metal warped from the heat. I looked at the scorched armor of my squad, the only 4 people on that planet who hadn't been turned into a greenhouse for a monster. "We saved ourselves, Sarah," I said, leaning my head back against the bulkhead. "And on Vesta 4, that's a victory. We didn't let the jungle win. We didn't become the widows. Humanity had proven the ultimate truth of the green hell. Nature can be as cruel and as hungry as any machine. It can try to turn our own flesh into a weapon against us. But it forgot one thing. We are the species that mastered fire. We are the ones who turned the sun into a tool. You can try to plant your seeds in our blood, you can try to grow your hives in our lungs, but as long as we have a spark and a suit of steel, we will burn your paradise to the ground. We aren't the livestock of the jungle. We are the Cauterizers. And we are the only things on Vesta 4 that the fire can't consume. This has been Apex Sci Fi. The air is poison but the fire is pure. If you enjoyed this scorched earth battle in the green hell, smash that like button and seal your suit. Comment below. What's scarier, a machine that wants to delete you or a plant that wants to grow inside you? Subscribe for the next story. The skin is sealed. The fire is out.